The top stories tonight in Y News. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, deploys mystery riders on transport network vehicle services following complaints of overcharging passengers. The Philippine National Police has ramped up security preparations ahead of the inauguration of President and Vice President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Sara Duterte Carpio. Members of the baker industry are urged to use local root crops as substitute for wheat flour. And Britain is celebrating Queen Elizabeth's second Platinum Jubilee, marking her 70 years on the throne with 4 days of festivities. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, the 3rd of June, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, has deployed mystery riders on Transport Network Vehicle Services, or TNVS, following complaints of overcharging passengers. Janice Inhente reports why.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, is conducting an investigation after it has received complaints of some Transport Network Vehicle Service, or TNVS. Units from one transport network company, or TNC, have been charging excessive fares beyond the fare structure. Thus, the LTFRB will deploy mystery riders, which would be deployed in the next few days and will check the compliance of the TNCs and TNVS operators. The crackdown is in response to a complaint submitted to the LTFRB that a TNC was charging as much as 1,000 pesos for a priority charging fee in a one-way ride.
Today po, nag-start na tayo ng deployment ng mga mystery riders po natin. At they're on the ground to validate po yung anonymous complaint that we have received and also to check on the compliance of the TNCs based on the May 24 warning that we issued on excessive fees.
The LTFRB said it already sent warning letters to at least 5 accredited TNCs, warning them of consequences if they are caught overcharging passengers. Based on the fare structure, TNVS are supposed to be 40 pesos flag-down rate for certain type TNVS with 15 pesos fare per kilometer and 2 pesos per minute travel fare. For premium AUV SUV, flag-down rate is at 50 pesos with 18 pesos per kilometer fare and 2 pesos per minute travel. While hatchback or subcompact type TNVS have 30 pesos plug-down rate with 13 pesos per kilometer fare rate and 2 pesos per minute travel fare. The LTFRB is also encouraging the riding public who are using the TNVS to report any irregularities committed by these ride-hailing transportations through its hotline number 1342 or through its Facebook page. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The free ride program of the government will continue to be implemented even beyond the Duterte administration. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, assures this as the government transitions to the Marcos administration on June 30. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
The government has allocated 7 billion pesos for the implementation of the Service Contracting Program Phase 3. But the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board confirms that only about 1.4 billion pesos has been disbursed to participating operators of public utility vehicles, while the amount payable now reaches to almost 3 billion pesos. According to LTFRB Chairman Martin Delgar III, the remaining fund may still be sufficient for its continuous implementation until the next administration. This means that the free ride component of the program will also carry on.
7 billion po ito at nakalaan po ito sa budget for this year. Ibig sabihin, until December of this year or until maubos yung pondo. Sa projection po namin sa ngayon, aabot po ng lagpas pa ng June 30 insofar as the budget is concerned.
The LTFRB chairman further explains that the implementation of the service contracting program is important as ridership increases amid the fuel price hike. LTFRB spokesperson Executive Director Maria Cristina Cason also assures that the drivers of participating operators are paid accordingly. Cason explains that the agreement for the service contracting program that the operators signed for also protects the welfare of the drivers.
So yun yung mga protection po natin, features ng ating, how we protect the drivers also from the reported na hindi pagbabayad ng ating mga operators.
The LTFRB encourages the public to report any operator not complying in their obligations to their drivers so the agency may issue a show cause order against the perpetrator. Those who will be proven to have violated the agreement will be eliminated from the program and may no longer rejoin in its future implementation. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police, or PNP, has ramped up security preparations ahead of the inauguration of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Vice President-elect Sara Duterte Carpio. The public might also see PNP civil disturbance management contingents in areas where rallies might hold demonstrations. Leah Ilagan reports why.
The Philippine National Police has not monitored any security threats so far, weeks before the inauguration ceremonies of President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and Vice President-elect Sara Duterte, despite the recent bombing in Sultan Kudarat and Isabela Basilan. But PNP spokesperson Police Colonel Jean Fajardo says they have augmented additional uniformed personnel in the vicinity of where the oath-taking will be held. Marcos will have his inauguration at the National Museum on June 30, while Duterte's oath-taking ceremony will be held in her hometown in Davao City on June 19.
Hindi po tayo nagkukumpiyansa at patuloy po tayong nagkakandak ng mga intelligence monitoring and gathering. Katuwang siyempre yung ating mga intelligence units both from the AFP and PNP at ibang mga security forces para masiguro po na wala po tayong malulusutan.
The official added they have started coordination and meetings with the camp of Marcos and Duterte.
Nag-start na po tayo makipagpulong sa mga concerned agency, particularly po yung transition team po ng ating papasok po na administrasyon at nagkaroon na nga po ng ocular inspection at kahapon nga po ay nagkaroon ng official announcement na nasa National Museum na po gaganapin yung inauguration po ng papasok po nating presidente.
The PNP will also deploy its civil disturbance management team in areas where rallyists might hold demonstrations.
Ang pakiusap nga po namin, sana po ay kung ano yung inilatag nating seguridad, sana hayaan po nila na mag-proceed at umusad yung inaasahan nga po nating inauguration sa June 30, maging po sa June 19 sa Davao. At doon sa ating mga kababayan, ay nire-respeto po natin yung kanilang kakapatan magpahayag ng kanilang mga damdamin. Subalit sana ay within the bounds of law at nandun sa proper forum po nila gawin yung kanilang pagpaprotesta.
The PNP appeals to motorists to check the traffic rerouting scheme to be implemented in the inauguration sites. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
In other news, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has placed the Philippines under the lowest risk classification for travelers. With this, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurs Joey Concepcion is also proposing that the government should lift the state of public health emergency that has been in effect since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The Filipinos have learned to live with the virus. COVID-19 cases no longer spike despite the previous political rallies and campaign held in the Philippines. These are emphasized by Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion, proposing to already lift the public health emergency.
We have to really move on and change our mindset. And even if the infection level goes up, remember, this is Omicron. Even the new variants are all Omicron. So it's more transmissible. But so what? It's still mild. It's like calling, we have a typhoon, a super typhoon, pero wala naman typhoon. So why are we calling it and keeping the state of health emergency when there is no emergency? So we are not using the term properly. We're using it even if there is no threat. So it does not make sense, no?
Concepcion also said most areas in the country are already in alert level 1, which proves the Philippines is no longer in an emergency state.
So alert level 1 is basically almost normal. No? So my point is that why are we calling this a state of health emergency when I feel that there is really no need, because countries that are even at level 3, as pointed out by CDC, are not in a state of health emergency. No?
However, the Department of Health said there are several factors to consider before lifting the country's public health emergency state. Health spokesperson Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said the number of COVID-19 cases is just one factor, as they also have to consider emerging COVID-19 variants and subvariants that might affect the healthcare system in the country.
For now, dito sa alert level natin, our areas are mostly in alert levels 1 and alert level 2. As long as there is this alert level, we still think that the emergency requirements or actions are still needed. Because in these alert levels, we can still see that the cases are still there, and also our hospitals have to be guarded.
Undersecretary Vergeres also emphasized that there's an operational implication in lifting the country's public health emergency. One example of this is the country's emergency use authorization of COVID-19 vaccines.
Pag nag-lift tayo ng public health emergency or the state of calamity, yun pong EUA ng ating mga bakuna ay hindi na po magiging valid. So kailangan, para tayo makapag-transition into that stage, no, kung saan non-emergency na ang turing sa COVID, kailangan magkaroon na po ng Certificate of Product Registration ng ating mga bakuna. Gayon din yung mga gamot na ginagamit natin ngayon that we are using as special compassionate permit.
The DOH also said they are taking baby steps, and lifting the country's COVID-19 state calamity is still being discussed by authorities. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The public can expect more information dissemination campaigns under the Marcos administration. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles, the incoming press secretary and PCOO chief, reiterated her plan to push for the accreditation of vloggers to allow them to attend briefings or press conferences of President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. In an interview with the program Get It Straight with Daniel Razon, Angeles said she wants to strengthen the information dissemination by pushing the accreditation of bloggers or vloggers.
Sabi ko nga, it will be a priority kasi when our job is to deliver the information, we want to make sure that there are people who will help us deliver it. People whom we are assured already have an audience. So hindi talaga kahit paano ma-exclude. Yung level of exclusion or inclusion and how we're going to do it over a period of time.
She explained that there is an existing policy on accrediting non-mainstream media into palace briefings. However, there are certain issues that need to be reviewed, such as timeliness and the scope of information that vloggers may or may not cover. Also, the incoming PCOO chief assured she will hold a dialogue with mainstream media members before deciding on the said matter.
Ang ating president-elect ng buong bansa. Hindi lang ng vloggers, hindi lang ng mainstream. So, it's time to kumbaga mahalaga ang opinion ng lahat. Of course, kaming mga vloggers, nakikita namin yung mga defenses dun sa mga nire-raise ng mainstream, but at the same time, hindi ko kayang i-dismiss yung kanilang nararamdaman.
Nel Maribuho, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
President-elect Bongbong Marcos Jr. directs the incoming Information and Communications Technology Chief to double their efforts in making government services accessible online. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
The incoming Marcos administration will enhance the digitalization of government services. According to incoming Information and Communications Technology Secretary Ivan Jan Uy, this is one of the marching orders to him of the president-elect.
We are looking at streamlining, reducing red tape, and minimizing yung mga pila-pila po sa mga iba-ibang mga opisina ng gobyerno. Mag-a-absent sa trabaho upang makakuha lang ng certification, ng clearance, or gagawa ng mga applications sa government offices.
Uy added the use of digital technology for government services will improve transactions and revenue generation as well as prevent corruption activities and irregularities. It will also enable the government to run more efficiently.
Dahil sa mga mano-mano na sistema na nakikita natin, lalo na sa mga ahensya ng gobyerno po, malaking pondo ang nawawala. With automation, with minimal human intervention, inasahan po natin na medyo mabawasan po yung nawawalang pondo ng gobyerno dahil sa corruption.
Michael Ricafort, an economist, shares the same position. He believes fiscal discipline must be enforced and several ways should be implemented to narrow government's budget deficit and reduce government's borrowings. This is amid the outstanding debt of the government, which soared to a new record high of 12.76 trillion pesos in April 2022.
Fiscal discipline. Kumbaga, anti-wastage, ayaw nila yung may nasasayang, anti-leakage, pati yung anti-corruption. Kumbaga, it all starts and ends with good governance.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines' next Congress is set to open next month. Get to know who will head the Senate committees and what to expect in the 19th Congress. Harleen Delgado has the story.
The third regular session of 18th Congress has officially adjourned. It was composed of 39 permanent committees. In the incoming 19th Congress, new committees will be formed, such as the new committees from the Labor Panel with the creation of the Department of Migrant Workers.
We will formulate the best possible supermajority in the 19th Congress, wherein all the committees will be handled by top-notch, highly qualified senators.
For the incumbent senators, Senator Sonny Angara will continue to lead the committees on finance and youth. Senator Nancy Binay will head the committees of tourism and accounts. Senator Pia Cayetano will also be retained as the chairperson of Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation and Futures Thinking. Meanwhile, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa will continue to head the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian and committees on Ways and Means and Basic Education, Arts and Culture. Senator Christopher Bongo in Health and Demography and Sports, Senator Lito Lapid in Games and Amusement, Senator Amy Marcos in Foreign Relations, Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Cooperatives, Senator Grace Poe in Committees on Public Services and Economic Affairs, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr. in Public Works and Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation, while Senator Francis Tolentino will hold the Blue Ribbon Committee and Science and Technology. Senator Cynthia Villar will also continue to be the chairperson of Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, and Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change Committees. The Committee on Justice and Human Rights has been reserved to Senator-elect Sorsogon Governor Cheese Escudero, while returning Senators Antique Representative Loren Legarda will lead the Higher Technical and Vocational Education Committee, J.V. Ejercito in the Local Government and Urban Planning, Housing and Resettlement, and Jinggoy Estrada in the National Defense and the new Committee on Labor focused on Domestic Affairs. On the other hand, the neophyte senators will hold major committees. Senator-elect Robin Padilla, who topped the 2022 senatorial race, will be the next head of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes. Out of the lawmakers who headed the committee since 1986, Padilla will be the only chairperson who is not a lawyer. Senate Majority Leader and presumptive Senate President Mig Zubiri says he wants to give the actor-turned-politician a chance.
Yan ang adikain niya, yan ang gusto niya. So, let's let him prove his worth.
Padilla will also lead the Committee on Public Information and Mass Media. Meanwhile, Rafi Tulfo will head the Committee on Energy and the new Committee on OFWs, while Mark Villar will lead the Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship. For now, several committees have yet to be assigned to any senator. The committees on banks, financial institutions and currencies, cultural communities, electoral reforms and people's participation, ethics, and government corporations and public enterprises. The new Congress will open on July 25th before the State of the Nation Address or SONA of President-elect Bongbong Marcos Jr. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, tens of thousands in United Kingdom celebrate Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee. However, the Queen will miss the Thanksgiving service on Friday after experiencing discomfort from Thursday's events. Ruth Bahe will give us the details live. Yes, Ruth?
Kath, good evening. 4 days of celebrations for Queen Elizabeth's 70 years on the throne kick off Thursday with military parade and her appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace with the working members of the royal family. She received tributes from world leaders and wishes from ordinary people for one of the history's great acts of constancy. Queen Elizabeth thanked people in Britain and across the Commonwealth who organized the celebration in a jubilee message, saying that many happy memories will be created at these occasions. She added that she will continue to be inspired by the goodwill shown to her and hoping in the coming days she'll reflect on all that has been achieved during the last 70 years. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace announced late Thursday that the 96-year-old Queen will not attend the service at the St. Paul Cathedral after her discomfort from the first day of celebration. Also, she has had health and mobility problems in recent months and has canceled many public events. The Queen, who was crowned at the age of 25, is the longest reigning British monarch and the first to reach the milestone of 7 decades on the throne. Kath?
Ruth, what are the remaining Jubilee events for this coming Saturday and Sunday? Will the Queen attend these events?
Kath, this Saturday, the Queen and her family are expected to attend the Epsom Derby race and Platinum Party at the Palace concert. Big Jubilee Lunch and the Platinum Jubilee pageant are staged across the country throughout Sunday. Kath, the Queen's spokesperson, explained that the Queen is looking forward and will be taking part in the celebration, but her presence will not be confirmed until much nearer the time or even the day itself. Back to you, Kath.
Thank you, Ruth Bahe, for that live report. Children in the United States under the age of 5 will be able to receive COVID-19 vaccines starting June 21st. Ryuji Sasaki reports why live. Yes, Ryuji?
Kath, White House COVID-19 response coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha said during a briefing that they acknowledge the frustration of parents of young children who have been waiting more than a year for COVID shots for their kids. The Food and Drug Administration and an advisory panel are set to meet on the 14th and 15th of June to evaluate the Pfizer and Moderna shots for young children. Once they authorize the pediatric vaccines, doctors and children's care facilities would start receiving shipments on the target date as expected.
So we expect that vaccinations will begin in earnest as early as Tuesday, June 21st, and really roll on throughout that week. And our expectation is that within weeks, every parent who wants their child to get vaccinated will be able to get an appointment.
Dr. Jha said that starting tomorrow, states can begin placing their orders, but it could take a few days for the vaccination appointments to be widely available across the country. Kath?
So, Ryuji, how many doses are they planning to make for the first pediatric vaccination program?
Yes, Kath. Dr. Jha said that initially they are going to make 10 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. And once the regulators approve it on June 15, this will be made available to states, pharmacies, community health centers, and federal entities. Kath?
Thank you, Ryuji Sasaki, for that live report. A 4,500-year-old plant has been named the largest plant in the world and can be found in the west waters of Western Australia. Marvi Delfin will give us the details live. Yes, Marvi?
Kath, protected and found in Shark Bay, Western Australia, Posidonia australis, a marine flowering plant or seagrass, covers over 180 kilometers, the same distance from San Diego to Los Angeles. According to a senior researcher, Elizabeth Sinclair of the University of Western Australia, the Posidonia australis is able to achieve such length through self-replication. Named as a rare non-sexual reproducing process, the plant extends its root stalks across the area, producing identical seagrass while remaining hidden beneath the sand. By collecting DNA samples from 10 different locations where the seagrass could be found in 2012 and 2019, they were able to confirm that it was all indeed one plant, which the DNA sequences revealed. Sinclair concluded that by cloning itself, the plant species is able to adapt to the changes in the habitat and is able to survive and reproduce as long as it can if left undisturbed. Kath, aside from Posidonia australis, the Posidonia oceanica is another large plant found in the Western Mediterranean. While it is not as large as the Posidonia australis, only stretching over 15 kilometers, it is known to be older than 100,000 years. Kath?
Thank you, Marvi Delfin, reporting live from Australia. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, is planning to use a new lunar navigation system that uses signals from Earth to navigate through space, specifically around the moon. Joselito Liquido will tell us why live. Joselito?
Good evening, Kath. With NASA's upcoming Artemis mission to the moon, the space agency has thought about the safety issues and navigation around the moon by testing a new lunar navigation system that uses signals from Earth's global navigation satellite system. The Lunar GNSS Receiver Experiment, or LUGER, will attempt to calculate the first ever location fixes during the planned mission to the moon, including the area on the lunar surface. J.J. Miller, Deputy Director of Policy of Strategic Communications for NASA's Space Communications and Navigation Program, stated that the project is exploring the capabilities of the GNSS system beyond its originally intended purpose on Earth into space. After reaching the moon's surface, the LUGER will collect navigation data for at least 12 days and send it back to Earth to develop operational GNSS system to be used for future missions to the moon. According to NASA, they are preparing to send this experimental payload to the moon no earlier than 2024. Kath?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, reporting live. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, food exports from Ukraine have been hindered, which has fueled a global food crisis. Ukraine and Russia account for almost a third of global wheat supply. Russia's fertilizer and Ukraine's corn and sunflower oil have also been hindered to leave their countries. In order to resume food exports from both countries, UNAID Chief Martin Griffiths went to Moscow yesterday to discuss this issue with Russian officials. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has tasked the UNAID chief and senior UN official Rebecca Greenspan to have constructive talks in Moscow. At least 20 million tons of Ukrainian grain shipments from its Black Sea ports are stuck in silos, while the sanctions imposed on Russia has affected its fertilizer and grain exports. Russia's defense ministry then said that the vessels carrying grain can safely leave Ukraine's port in the Black Sea via humanitarian corridors. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I'm Kat Tumaraos, live from Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening.
As the ingredients for bread become more scarce globally, a group of bakers has suggested the use of non-wheat alternatives to maintain the low price of the staple. JP Nunez has the story.
Bread manufacturers and several bakeries are eyeing to increase the prices of their products amid tight supply and rising costs of raw materials. Local companies are fully reliant on wheat imports for their produce, and with Russia as the top exporter of the commodity, the global supply chain was disrupted.
Ang nagiging problema ko dati, ang increase once a year lang. Ngayon, quarterly, tumataas ang mga raw mat. Itong pagtaas na ito ng raw mat, ito'y isang malaking suliranin sa industriya na magtitinapay.
To address this, the Philippine Bakers Association urges the use of local root crops as substitute for wet flour. Locally available non-wet flours are made of sweet potatoes, cassava, carrots, and even squash. Luisito Chavez, the head of the Philippine Bakers Association, believes that this may also help the local agricultural sector.
Alam mo, ang isang tanging solusyon na naiisip ko bilang panadero ay yung paggamit ng agricultural crop ng Pilipinas na meron tayo para ihalo sa tinapay. Saying, for example, that 20% of kamote or kamoting bagin or kamoting kahoy or potato, in-incorporate natin yan sa ating pandesal, sa ating mga tinapay, ay napakalaking kabawasan nito sa importasyon ng harina at karagdagan naman sa benta ng mga nasa agrikultura.
In a text message to UNTV News, Philippine Association of Flour Millers Executive Director Rick Pinca said that the country's supply of wheat flour will last for 3 months. The Department of Agriculture assures the availability of local flours in the country made of coconut and cassava. Meanwhile, Secretary William Dar confirms that they had a discussion on the possible importation of wheat flour from Canada. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Our kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International. And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 15. It says, "The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open unto their cry." And those are the reasons behind the news, June 3, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. We serve the people, we give glory to God.